Hi guys, Totallydubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review on the SoundMagic E11BT. Now in this review I'll be comparing the E11BT to their wired variants, the E11C, which I've got in my hands over here, and also referencing the Rockjaw T5s, which are their new wireless earphones. Now the E11BT come in at £70, whilst the wired variants come for £40 without a microphone and £50, so you've got a slight little premium for that wireless connectivity. Now also in this review I'll be referencing the E10BT and the E10 wired variants, which are its predecessors. In the links in the description below you'll find all links to all the earphones that I've mentioned. Also alternatives that I might have not mentioned will be also down there, so do check them down below. Now in the box what you'll find is a micro USB to USB cable for charging, a manual, some extra silicone tips, and also a little carrying pouch. The carrying pouch might seem quite large, but that's because SoundMagic have moved to a neckband design, and therefore if you need to fit it into somewhere you've got this little carrying pouch. But it's nice to see it included, but it's very much different from the normal SoundMagic type of look of this hard shell carrying case. Now the actual earphones themselves have actually progressed in a positive sense over the E10BT. You no longer have this weird little dongle which it kind of sits by your sits by your chest or behind your back. In other words, it's a lot better because it's gone into a neckband design. Personally and subjectively, I much prefer ones which don't have actually a neckband whatsoever. It feels a lot lighter and easier, especially if you want to go on a run. Now, I wouldn't suggest these going for more really strenuous physical activities, but for your light jog, walking around or walking at pace and catching Pokemon like I might do, then it will be absolutely fine. You won't have any problems. In terms of comfort as well, I did find the neckband actually quite lightweight, and the actual design as well is kind of like a silicone rubbery material, which means that it's not going to stain easily, and plus the all black design means that, you know, if you're a lady as well, makeup is not going to really show on it. So overall I had no complaints with that, and overall in terms of the looks I quite like the all black design. And yes, it doesn't come in, say, a silvery greyish aluminium design, which could have been nice or might come in the future, I have no idea, but the all black design is really nothing to kind of complain or to mention. There's a left and right indicator on the earphones themselves. It's a little bit hard to see, but it's going to be pretty obvious after you own these for a little while, because your left driver has this little control pod, which will be pretty easy. As soon as you pick them up, you'll know which one's left and right. Now over the E10BT, what you'll find is they also have a little magnet. Now the magnet is pretty weak, to say the least. As you can see, it's very easy to get off. It's not as strong as some of its competitors that have a much stronger magnet. As you can see, this Rockjaw over here, it has just a lot more resistance, and sits a little bit better together. So I would have liked them to increase the sort of like the magnet strength between the two drivers, but nevertheless they have them there, so you can dangle them around your neck. Unfortunately, unlike the OnePlus Wireless 2, the Bullets Wireless 2, they don't have a pause on and off function or turn on and off function. It's just a basic, you know, just for aesthetics more, or just for convenience rather than actual functionality. Now the actual control pod itself has a microphone built in, so you can answer and receive calls. You can even see it's got a little call function over here. Now the 3-button remote actually serves a lot of purpose. Other than answering and receiving calls, you can double tap the middle button and it'll also quick dial your previous contact, which is pretty handy, but also can be a little bit annoying if you accidentally do that, simply because the plus and minus button don't have any sort of different sort of feel to them, so you're going to kind of have to guess where the top and bottom is. So it might seem very trivial, but for some people you might be wondering about that. The plus and minus buttons also allow you to seek between the music, so if you hold it down it's going to seek between a song. If you double tap it, it's going to go next. Double tap the minus button, it's going to go previous. And if you press it once and wait every now and then and do it like a perfect sort of rhythm, then you can increase or decrease the volume. I did find that a little bit finicky and sometimes hit and miss, not as intuitive as, for example, the one on the E11 or its competitors. Other than that, in terms of the call quality, I think it's absolutely decent. It's fine. It's never going to replicate your smartphone, which is going to be sitting right next to your mouth, but nevertheless, it's absolutely decent. It's average, and it's acceptable to say the least. Other than that, in terms of the charging port, I'm actually quite disappointed to see micro USB, and further, I'm actually really not a fan of this little flap over here. It's very, very light, and it comes out very easily, and just doesn't really beg like, oh, this is really great quality. Or over time, given that I've owned these for maybe just less than a month or so, it's very annoying that, you know, over time this might actually come out, and therefore if it rains really heavily, it goes in that port, and then, you know, you'll be left with a paperweight. It does annoy me, and it again might seem trivial to some, but you know, if you're going to be using earphones on a daily basis, you will find that to be annoying, especially if you're going to put this in a bag or your pocket. You'll find that the flap might come undone every now and then. In terms of battery life, now these earphones have a quoted 20 hours battery life. It's very much, your mileage may vary. I noticed, you know, over about a week I didn't have to charge them, which was fantastic. But again, depending on how you interact with them and what volume you have them playing at, you might get more or you might get less, but around 20 hours is what you should expect. In terms of Bluetooth range, I had no problems. In terms of Bluetooth synchronization with my Android device, yet again, no problems, no lip sync issues of any sort. What I did, again, kind of like slightly disappointed, but somewhat expected its price range, is the fact that Bluetooth codec is limited to AAC and SBC codec only. I would have liked aptX. I don't expect aptX HD or LDAC, but nevertheless, it would have been nice to see aptX kind of included. So you are limited to AAC codec, which is perfectly acceptable, but does limit sort of sound quality in comparison to like a wired alternative or one that does have aptX codec. That's drivers aside. But now let's speak about those drivers. It's still 10mm dynamic drivers which feature in the E11 wired. However, they have a different sort of sound signature. And even if you look at SoundMagic's website, you'll notice like the frequency range between the two actually does vary, where the E11 wired has a slightly deeper and a longer sort of extension in that frequency range from the bass and even the highs. So when I looked at that, I was like quite intrigued in terms of specs, but then when I got them in, you know, putting specs aside, you know, because specs only do go so far, I did notice a difference between the two. And that's not only just due to the Bluetooth technology, which can degrade quality over wired, but it was also just due to the dynamism. It just didn't sound as like dynamic as I wanted in comparison to the E11 wired variant. So in this respect, comparing the two earphones, I found that the E11 wired had just a little bit more control and just felt a little bit more dynamic. It's the best way I can explain it. I wouldn't say clear, or clearer. It's more the fact that it just sounded a little bit more exciting to my ears. And no matter the volume I pushed them at, and yes, they get perfectly loud, so don't worry, you can crank them up really loud, I just found that the E11 wired variant just sounded that little bit better. Now comparing it to the E10, so the E10BT and the E10 wired variant, these are definitely a progression in a good respect. They sound a lot less muddy and they sound a little bit more controlled, especially in the mid-range. And somewhat same sort of comments I had about the E11s over the E10s, the wired variants. I felt that these just sounded just a little bit more refined. So now let's go into the individual sound frequencies of the E11BT. So the E11BT, starting with a bass, you do get a sub-bass extension, but it's very faint. It's not really extended and doesn't give you that some sort of rumble. It's definitely not as in your face or as like capable as the rock jaws, but overall the E11BT do a good job. In terms of the mid-bass, again, it is controlled, it's very much subdued, very much like the E11s. I think these are very much equivalent in that mid-bass frequency, compared to the rock jaw, which sound extremely in your face and overly forwards, so much so that kind of dominating with the mid-bass frequencies. The E11BT do a good job in terms of providing that little bit more control and cohesion in the mid-bass frequencies. Moving to the mids, now lower mids are actually pretty nice. They sound a lot better than the rock jaws, but do sound a little bit more recessed over the E11 wired. The upper mids here, again, a little bit struggled over the E11s, but a lot better than the rock jaws. So in somewhat, the mid-range was good, and at this price range, it's somewhat to be expected, but nothing to shout about. The highs do extend, roll off at the top end, kind of to be expected yet again with all the ones that I've got in front of me, but do provide a nice sort of sparkle and sort of tonality. Soundstage, good in terms of instrument separation. It sounded really nice, and yes, it does lack that dynamism, but it does still provide that sort of instrument separation and that width and depth that I really liked about the E11 wired variant. So overall, the sound quality is actually good. It's for the price, it's to be kind of expected, but over the E11 wired, I would have preferred the wired, given especially they're cheaper, and if you don't mind a wire dangling, that's what I'd recommend. Over the Rockjaw, over its competitors, I would say it's a good alternative. It's not the best under £100, but it's definitely up there with one I would recommend. Personally, the best under £100, if you could afford it, which is exactly £100, would be the OnePlus Bullets Wireless 2, which to me really kind of hit the sweet spot in terms of sound signature. So there we go, guys. That's my honest opinion. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and as I said before, check in the description below for all the links and all its competitors. And if you can, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, favorite, and share. It helps the channel grow and lets me continue giving you unbiased, unpaid reviews. Alright guys, I've been Totally Dubbed. Take care and bye-bye.